The last time we were discussing the dynamics of all that goes on while attempting to fix a program in trouble. So, let's continue.
Okay. I am interested in what actually goes on.
Before starting, I would like to point out that all that I discuss is the generalized case. Each specific management firefight has its own unique circumstances, but what I will address is found in most all such programs in trouble. Okay?
Yes, that's fine. I do understand what you mean.
The very first thing I do is to have a meeting with the program's management staff, and then with all the personnel. This is to let them know what is going on and what they might expect. Without such an initial discussion, people tend to make up what's going to happen, and it is often wrong. After these two meetings, I have a discussion with the customer. I need the customer's perspective on what's happening as well as a sense of his or her, let's call it, mood. This is very critical to all that follows. I would prefer that the discussion of the customer interface be addressed later. Okay?
Okay.
When you first show up on a troubled program, what you find is the following: the employees and managers, alike, are not in a friendly mood. So, it's like walking into a somewhat hostile environment. I don't mean that the people are rude or antagonistic, although this does happen sometimes. Rather, mostly they are unsure and somewhat frightened about what changes might be forced upon them. And, more often than not, they are worried about where blame will fall. I assure them that it is my job to take any blame, and for them to get any credit. In order to gain the information needed to come up with a solution, one must first assure all the project's people that you truly are there to make their lives easier. Not necessarily having less work to do, but more that their work efforts will have recognized positive results.
I can imagine that doing so is not all that easy. How long does it take?
Actually, it goes on for quite a while. Some are receptive right away, some are very wary of anybody from upper management, and, yet, others tend to think that you can't possibly do any more than they have already done. You just take it one person at a time. One must be able to work with people of widely varying levels of trust in your motives and your abilities. That goes for the management team as well as all the employees. As mentioned when last we spoke, reviews are done of all program artifacts, that is, technical designs and approaches, accomplishment plans and schedules, process methods being used, financial reporting, contract adherence, etc. All this is done while pulsing the employees and managers as to what is actually going on. One set of questions to ask everybody is: 1. How do you know when you're done? 2. How do you know? 3. What does that mean? And 4. Can you show me? The process of asking these questions and the answers one gets is kind of like applying the Socratic method. Again, kind of. You would be surprised how difficult the answers to these questions can be if the program is not using objective means of measuring progress.
What do you mean?
To answer that, let me give an example. You are conducting a test on some component you are developing. It could be hardware or software, or anything else, for that matter. Without a defined and approved set of completion criteria, you would have no way of determining when you're done. You might think you're done, but you could not demonstrate how you know. Further, you probably have a schedule for completing the test. So, I ask you if you're on schedule. You answer yes. Then I ask you, how do you know? Without a defined, very numerous set of intermediate milestones with completion criteria for each one, all you can demonstrate is that you have started, not where you are now. Now, applying reason here, if the entire test is to take less than a day or so, then the time to create lots of these intermediate milestones would take longer than the testing. So, one has to be rather flexible and rational in asking these questions, and in what answers make good common sense. Applying common sense is critical in all aspects of management firefighting, and, for that matter, in everything we do. Since I would normally not be too close to the actual details of the program at this point, the answer to the "how do you know" question might not be clearly understood. So, I would then ask, what do you mean? The answer usually involves a detailed discussion to truly understand what they really mean. After the discussion of the answer, I would ask, can you show me? Showing actual artifacts of schedule adherence that make sense goes a long way to increase credibility of the person and their manager as to how they see that things are getting done on time. The reasonableness of the people's answers help a great deal in coming up with a set of solutions, and who, initially at least, can do what with the greatest expectation of success later. You would be surprised how many times I find that no one has ever asked people to justify their positions on something. I want to point out something here. I would have reviewed the methods employed on the program prior to pulsing the personnel. So, I already know if objective criteria is intended to be used or not. What I'm really looking for is each person's manner of dealing with the questions. Let's assume that a full set of objective criteria is not being used on the program, and, unfortunately, this is the normal case. A person may have been clever enough to have created their own. This makes them a good potential for later, helpful talent. Or they may attempt to snow me, that wouldn't work. But, I have that person calibrated, at least at first. Or, in fact, they may be just totally honest, again, making them a good potential for later, helpful talent.
You've mentioned methods quite a few times. What are you talking about specifically?
Reasonable question. I'm talking about the methodology, or ways, the program is to get the job done. Think of such a methodology as a very large recipe for a cake. Follow the instructions as written, and wind up with a beautiful cake. Don't follow them, and wind up with a mess. Most companies have a standard set of process manuals, or a methodology, that is supposed to be followed on all programs. I look to see if the program is using the standard, whether each person has access to a copy, and if some form of quality assurance is assuring their use. The truth of the matter is that programs in trouble tend not to use the company's standard methods. The exact reason why, even after dealing with such programs for many years, is unclear. I'll discuss more on this later. It doesn't matter how good a person is, or how good they think they are, a defined process to follow gives a checklist so one doesn't forget what to do when under stress.
What do you do if there is no defined process? I mean, that's possible, isn't it?
Having no defined process is rare, but it does happen. If the program really doesn't have one, I give them one. If the process they have is not adequate, I'd show them how to enhance it. The usual problem is they don't follow the one they have. So, in this case, I insist they use it, and I monitor that they do. When people are used to doing something one way and you insist they do it differently, personnel issues can arise. To solve this human condition takes lots of communication and coordination. In a management firefight, one is never bored.
I can believe you. Next time, let's discuss what you would consider a reasonable objective means of measuring progress and other stuff. Okay?
That's a good suggestion. Let's do it.